My name is Jeremy, and once again, let me just welcome you to Story Church, especially if you're a guest with us. We just think it's a huge deal that you would show up on a Sunday morning to a place you don't know, full of people that could be weird, and we're just thrilled that you're here with us this morning. We are kicking off a brand new series called Greatest Hits, and I am so excited about this series. This series is one that I have been thinking about for about a year and a half. I first had an idea and I just started thinking about it and I put it away and thoughts have been coming to me for a long time. And so I'm ready to teach this. I'm ready to just kind of walk through this together as a church over these next few weeks. I think there's going to be some really amazing things that happen in these weeks as we dig in, as we kind of talk through this. But let me do this. Let me just start out. I'm going to pray for you and I'm just going to ask God to bless us right now as we're getting ready to hear from him. God, thank you for loving us. Thank you that you brought us here, God, not by accident this morning, but with purpose. And God, I pray that whatever happens today, Lord, that you would speak loud and clear to each one of us, and that we would walk away from here different as a result of what we experienced here. So we thank you and we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, this series, Greatest Hits. Some of you are looking at the screen and you're like, what are those foreign objects? These are cassette tapes, and there was a time and place when music was contained upon such cassette tapes, and you would actually put them into a stereo or your car or whatever, play music, and then you would have to turn it over and play the other side, or you'd have to rewind and fast forward. There were all these interesting things. It was like a VCR tape, right, for music. Although you're going, what's a VCR? So that didn't help. But here's the deal. What happened was that when back in my day, music came on these cassettes, and you would buy a cassette and you would wear it out. Like when you listen to it a lot, it would eventually start to sort of warp and get weird, and you always had at least one stereo somewhere that would eat these things for lunch, and so there would be this moment where everything would freak out, and you would go running to the cassette player, and you would pull out your tape, and all the insides would be like its guts would be strewn all over the place. And so you would then have to you would get this pencil. This is what you would do, and you would put the pencil in one of those holes, and you would start to wind the tape back up. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay, we're there. So, and what would happen though is that your favorite ones would get worn out because they would get played so much. And it's the greatest hits. It's the ones that you love the most that got worn out over time because you listen to them over and over. And we all have those songs, we have those memories, we have those things that, man, when that song comes on, you just turn it up a little bit louder, right? And you belt it out when you're driving. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. Some of you, let's be honest, white dudes are still dancing in your cars, and you're like, I hope no one can see me. But you're getting into it because you love the song and whatever's going on there, and it reminds you of something. And we've all got these songs that sort of take us back to a moment. And so I think of some of my favorite songs that tell really great stories, like the song itself begins to speak for a time in my life, right? And so for me, one of my all-time favorites is a Green Day song called what is it called? I don't even know what it's called. It's called Good Riddance, right? And it's an acoustic song that they play, and sort of the refrain is like, I hope you had the time of your life. And it just, it's this amazing song. It reminds me of 1998, which was the most fun I have ever had playing baseball. Like the season of baseball, that was 1998. We put together a video at the end of the season of just kind of the highlights of what happened. And that song was the soundtrack of the video. And so that has been burned into my memory bank. It's synonymous with that time. So whenever that song comes on, that's immediately where I go. That's immediately what I remember. And so you've got a song. You've got something that reminds you of the first dance. It reminds you of when you were driving away and you see in your rearview mirror and you're thinking, I'll never be going back there, right? Or you've got the song that reminds you of some specific place that you went. Or it's a song, that speaks to you about maybe as there's a moment of sadness and great loss that you went through, and that song carried you through that period of time in your life. And so we've all got these. We've got these sort of greatest hits. They're not necessarily, maybe they weren't even the radio greatest hits, but they're the greatest hits of our lives. They're the ones that tell the story of our lives and everything that's happened. And so you've got a story connected to that song. You have a memory, an event. And the Bible is like that too. The Bible is full of these songs. In fact, there's an entire book right in the middle of the Bible called Psalms, and there's 150 different songs that are written into this book. And these songs are like that, in the same way that that song takes you back to that moment. For the people of Israel, these songs reminded them of their greatest moments, of their worst moments, of their saddest moments, of their most joyful moments. The songs take them back, and so they tell the stories as you start to look into these songs of the highs and the lows and the in-betweens of Israel and their history. There are these songs that, they're praising God because of all the cool things that have happened. And then there are these songs where they're in despair and loss, and they're sad. And there are these songs that talk about, questioning, God, where are you? What's going on? And there's all these different songs that sort of talk about, these memories, these moments, these stories for the people of Israel. And what we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to take one particular song from the Bible. It's Psalm 107. And this psalm is so rich and so deep and so amazing. As I began to study this more and more, I'm like, I cannot wait to talk through this. Because what this song is it's a song with 4 specific verses or 4 specific stanzas to the song. And the way that it works itself out is it starts out with this sort of proclamation to tell your story, or to kind of get in, like sing it, right? Like let it be told. And then what it does is it begins to walk through 4 specific stories, 4 specific sort of time periods or ways to think about, the way that God has moved in the lives of his people. And so what we're going to do is we're going to spend a week on each of those stories, and we're going to talk through this, and we're going to just unpack that. And here's what I think is going to happen, is that over the next few weeks, you're going to find your story somewhere in the midst of this. Somewhere in the midst of these 4 weeks, you're going to tap in, you're going to go, oh my gosh, they're reading my mail. Like, that's my story. That is my situation. That story resonates deeply with who I am. When I think about my past, when I think about what I'm going through right now, that's my story. And my hope is that over these few weeks, you find that and you resonate with something like this, and it becomes the anthem of your life. And then here's the key. Here's what we're going to ask you to do throughout this series, is to tell your story, to get your story out, to begin to speak it out loud and to tell it to other people. And so I'm gonna start out. We're just gonna spend a couple minutes in these first few verses today. But this psalm, just like I said, all of our songs sort of remind us of this moment. This song spoke specifically to a period in Israel's history known as the exile. Okay, so here's real quick history. God's people, Israel, are slaves in Egypt. Moses, you heard of him, 10 Commandments, Charlton Heston, right? He goes in there, he rescues God's people, he takes them out, and God is going to give them their own land. Now, it takes 40 years for them to get to that point because of a lot of stuff. But eventually they get there, and they have their own land. What ends up happening is that over time, they sort of start to forget about God, and they turn their back on God, and they just kind of start doing their own thing. And what ends up happening is that neighboring nations come in and conquer them and then carry them off into captivity, into exile, okay? And there comes a point while they're in exile where they finally remember, oh yeah, we should have followed God. And they cry out to God, and God then rescues them and brings them back to their own place. But it's this period of exile that this psalm is birthed out of. This whole thing that we talk about over the next few weeks is birthed out of that memory, that period of time in their life where they were exiled and in a foreign place, not a people, not an identity, lost, confused, all those kinds of things. And so that's where this is coming from as we begin this psalm. So here we go. We're going to jump in right at the beginning of Psalm 107, verses 1-3. And here's how it starts. It says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever." We sang that here in this church a lot of times, those exact words. And then it says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. Those he gathered from the lands, from east and west, from north and south." So the song starts with this sort of like, sing it now, right? It's kind of a everybody. It's this sort of declaration of, guys, God has been so good to us. Let's tell the story. Let's tell our stories of how God has redeemed us, what God has done to sort of, rescue us and redeem us. And he specifically says, those he gathered from the lands from east and west, from north and from south. And actually that word south, we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, but it actually could mean the sea as well. And that's significant as you go throughout this psalm. But there are these 4 distinct geographical locations that it says that God has rescued them from. And then what you're going to find as we dig through this is that the psalm itself, each verse, each stanza of the song represents one of these geographical areas. It represents these, and it's really this amazing, amazing song as we go. But the big thing that I don't want you to miss today, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. That's the idea. And as we go throughout this series, we want to capture with you your greatest hits. What are the moments that God did something incredible in your life? Tell the story. Let the redeemed of the Lord, let the rescued, let the ones who God has come into their life and done something incredible, let them share the story. Get it out there, sing it. It's like, open up the windows and let people hear you belting it out. Tell people what God has done in your life. And so here's what we're going to jump into this sort of first stanza or the first verse of this song this morning. And it's found in verses 4-9. Here's what it says. It says, we just said, though, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he gathered from the lands, from east and west, from north and south. And then it says, here's some of those people. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Okay, so this first story, the first verse of the song says, okay, there are some people that are wanderers. There are some people who have been wandering throughout the lands. And it's this east idea. For them, it's the desert. For the geographical, put your mind in Israel and think about where all that is. For the Israelites, everything to the east represented the desert and the wasteland and just wandering and just sort of this lost, searching, no place to call home idea, because that's where they were exiled. That's where they were taken away. And so in their mindset, they're thinking the east, the desert, it's this place of wandering. It's a place of feeling lost. It's a place of feeling confused, a place of feeling, desperate and longing. And there's this thirsty and hungry idea, right? It's being unsatisfied and searching for something that would not only satisfy them, but a place that they could put their feet down, right? And call it home. And there's this sense in them that they feel like they're wandering. And so this first verse of the song is like, it's about the wanderer. It's about this idea of just this person who's going through life and thinking like, I am confused, I'm lost, I'm not sure where I'm going. And they're bouncing maybe from thing to thing, trying to find something that would satisfy. And ultimately they find themselves empty. It's not working. And if you can picture this sort of, this idea of wandering in the desert. I mean, if you've ever been in a place where it's hot and dry and you're just kind of, you're out there and you're like, man, what I wouldn't give for some water, what I wouldn't give for, a place to sit down, a place to rest, a place to call home. And so this is this group of people. They are the wanderers. They're there and they're lost and they're confused. But notice what happens. It says that they cry out to the Lord, and it says that he rescues them. And what does he do? He leads them by a straight way. So here they are wandering, and you have this picture of sort of this, back and forth, not sure. And then it says that God comes in and rescues them and leads them on a straight way. Suddenly they have direction. They're no longer wandering. They have direction. They have focus. They have a place that they're going. They have a heading. They know where they're going, and they're following someone. They're no longer trying to figure it out on their own. There is someone leading them. It says that God rescues them, redeems them, and he leads them on a straight way. And so this wandering group of people, this people who were longing to be satisfied, they're longing to find some meaning and some purpose. They cry out to God, and God rescues them, and he comes in and he shows them the way. And it says that he leads them to a city where they can settle. They end up in a place. They're no longer sort of like, nomads and just like, sir, is this home? Is this home? Is this home? They have a place where it's like, okay, this is it. This is where this leads. This is where I'm supposed to be. God does this. He grabs them in the desert and he brings them into the city. He brings them into a place where they can call home. Now, you're hearing the story, and I guarantee some of you in this room, you resonate immediately with this idea of wandering. You immediately go, man, that is my story, or it was my story. Either way, you're able to sit here in this room and you go, man, I know firsthand what it means to wander. I have been there. I tried that thing, and I tried that thing, and I went. There's that decade in my life where I was lost and confused and I didn't know what I was doing. There's that season in my life where I felt completely unsatisfied. I felt like nothing was working. I felt like I was confused. I was lost. I didn't know where I was going, and I was searching. And if you're looking back at your life, sometimes you can see that. Some of you, if you're really honest, would say, I'm in that moment right now. I am wandering. And I have been in a desert. And I have experienced this, and I'm experiencing it right now, this dryness and this longing for a place, this longing for direction. And I'm not sure if I should be there, and I'm not sure if I should be there, and I'm not sure about that relationship or that relationship. And you're just kind of wandering, and you're going through life, and it feels chaotic. It feels like you're not really sure what you ought to do. But here's the deal. The difference between the wanderer and the one who has found their way is that one little line, cried out to God. They cried out to God. And this is what the group did. There they are in the east. They're in the desert. They're wandering, and they cry out to God. And it says that God comes and he leads them on a straight way. And my encouragement to you, my hope for you today is if you find yourself as a person who's wandering today, you're in the midst of wandering, and maybe you sort of wandered into a church this morning. Maybe this was not, it's like, hey, I tried something else last week, and this week I'll try church. And you're sort of wandered your way in here. My hope for you today is that you will do like these people, and you will recognize the difference between wandering and a greatest hits kind of story is the crying out to God part. It's the part where you say, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need someone to lead me. I need someone to follow. And you cry out to him, and he leads you, and he comes and he says, let me show you the path. Let me show you the way that you ought to go. And here's what happens. He turns wanderers into followers. Instead of wandering aimlessly and, maybe I'll go over there, maybe I'll go over there. Suddenly now you have a direction. You know, I just need to follow that person. It reminds me, this just came to me, there's this old sort of rabbinic saying that they would say often that was sort of a blessing to a disciple of a rabbi. So the disciples were the young kids, maybe they're 12 or 13 or 14 years old, and they were chosen by a rabbi to follow that rabbi and to learn from that rabbi and to sort of be proteges. And their job was to follow that rabbi and learn that rabbi's way and do everything. And so there was a blessing that other people would say to those kids. They would say to them, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. And it was this sense that they should walk so closely to their rabbi that as he walks, the dust from his feet gets all over them. That they are learning from him in that way. And it's that sense when you're in the desert, you're in the dry place, you're wandering and you're lost, that if you will find the person to follow, if you will find and you will cry out to God, that you can stick to him and you can follow him and you can have his dust all over you as he leads you into the place that you can call home and the place where he wants for you. Wanderers need a direction. And maybe you're not there in this moment, but you were at one point. And you can look back at your life and you go, man, I was there. And you can say, yeah, I resonate with that. There was this moment I was lost. There was this moment I was confused, and God rescued me. Like, I now have a direction. I have a heading. I have a purpose. God has pulled me out of the desert. I am in this new place in my life. All I can say to you is let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Tell it. You need to tell that story. People need to hear about what happened in your life. They need to hear what God did for you, because that is so encouraging to those that are sitting there in the middle of the desert going, I don't think there's any way out of this place. And for you to be able to speak into that and go, no, I found it. And God was good and God was faithful and he led me out of this moment. And so what we're trying to do during this series to encourage you, one is to recognize your story. Two is to share it. And so we've had an opportunity, there's someone in our church that as I got to know her more and more, I just thought, this is sort of a wandering story. There's a little bit of this sort of, in chaos, not sure what was going on, and figured out sort of, someone pointed them in a direction. And through that, their life has been changed. And so we've had the opportunity to sort of record that, and we're going to share that with you in just a second. But I want you to listen closely. I want you to hear the wandering. And I want you to hear the difference that is made when a wanderer begins to find their way. So check this out.
I've been wandering through this world, looking for an anchor to hold me.
The last year has been really chaotic. Had a lot of changes, a lot of kind of not fun life events. I was going through a separation, and my parents' marriage started falling apart in front of my eyes, which was very difficult to watch. And I was trying to date somebody new, and things were just really difficult. So it was just really chaotic, and I thought, well, I can just handle everything on my own, but found out that really wasn't the case. So Karen invited me to go to church for Easter Sunday, which was just kind of a blessing in disguise, and I wanted somewhere to go, something to do, to be around people who loved me and family, and Karen and her family sort of adopted me in, and she would always offer for me to come to church with them at any point, but not pushy at all by any means, and made church sound fun, just like a fun place to be with good people, supportive people, and so I just finally accepted, all right, fine, we'll go, let's give it a chance. The 88 miles per hour series had started, and with everything going on in my life and looking back and learning from it, and the whole message of trying to not repeat things and get the future that you want, I just knew that that's what I needed, and that's kind of what God was sending me. And so I committed to going every week for that series, and every week I cried. And every week it touched me, and I learned something about myself and really looked at my family and my past and everything that I've been wanting to change and what I want out of life. I knew that at that point the only way I would get it is if I followed Jesus. That time frame of that series changed my life. After that, I was just like, all right, I know that there's no way that I'm going to be able to go through life. I can't handle things on my own because it doesn't get me to where I need to be or what I want. So that's what changed everything. The most important things that I've learned about that was that God loves me no matter what. That was something that was really hard for me to really wrap my head around, because I realized that I was constantly searching for love for somebody or something or whichever, and accepting that God loves me always and forever, and doesn't matter what I do, like unconditional. That really was changing. That helped me a lot. everything's new. This whole faith journey and learning and everything. It's like learning to crawl and then walk and then run. And
I've been wandering through this world, looking for a love that might free me.
my name is Larissa, and this is my story.
So good, so powerful. So Larissa, you got to come on up and let's invite. I want to have Karen come up as well, and then you'll hear why in just a second. But if you guys want to come on up and join me up here, I'm gonna have to have you share this. So we'll go back and forth, Karen. I'm gonna have you start with this.
Okay.
So cool, right? I mean, just an incredible story. And one of the things that I just think is so powerful that we weren't. If I included everything in this story, it would have taken 15, 20 minutes to unpack it all. And so we're like, we got one song's worth. Let's get it into 4 minutes. So some of that didn't make it. But here's what I want to know, because Karen, you played a really significant role in this. And Karen is the one who invited Larissa to come on Easter. And you heard a little bit of that a year ago. So just tell me real quick, what was your relationship with Larissa? I mean, how did you guys know each other, and what was that all about?
Well, Larissa and I were working together at that time, and we were a few cubicles apart, and she was one of the first people I got to know when I started that job, and she was always real friendly and very nice, and we would go have lunch together, and we just made friends that way. That's
awesome. And so what, was there something that you were seeing in her that caused you to reach out to her to say, hey, why don't you come with me? What was happening? Because you guys were obviously, it seemed like you were talking and maybe sharing some things that was going on.
I knew she was going through some stuff. She would share with me what was happening in her life. And I was just supportive. I didn't really have any answers, but just trying to support her, to be there. I would invite her to our house because she's been like a daughter to me now.
Yeah.
So we just adopted her, and I said, you need to come to church. And I'd say, well, you should come to church with me. And I would say that every few weeks. I'd say, you should come to church with me. And I knew that Easter is a good time to invite people who have either never been to church or they've not been in a long time, because you're used to that idea of church on Easter.
Absolutely.
And so that was the Easter Sunday also that we did last year you did the stuff outside.
That's right, yes.
And I knew that would be fun. So.
That's great. So Larissa, you're on that end of it, and you're receiving, and so you've got this lady who's asking you all the time to come and stuff. Tell me, what in you caused you to finally say, yeah, I should go?
As Karen said, it was more of like Easter's like a family activity and also kind of associated with church. But as I said in my video, my whole family life was kind of falling apart, and I wanted to feel family on that day. So that was part of it. And I figured, well, we can go to church. That looks like fun. They had a good little postcard.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, she gave me the postcard. I was like, cool, okay, games,
so,
let's go.
Looking back now, I mean, we have all got to know you. We have seen, many of us saw you get baptized. We're hearing your story now. Tell me, how important to you was that invitation to where the direction that your life is now taken?
I mean, the day that I said yes to coming to church was the day that I chose a different path. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was night and this is day. It's just completely different.
Amazing. Give them a hand, huh? So good. Thank you. You guys can grab a seat. Guys, I just want to sit there in that moment for a second, because you guys, it cannot be overstated how important it is for someone to help someone else who may be wandering. And if you know a way for you to not tell your story, for you not enter in and go, hey, I know the way. I mean, there are people like Larissa, I believe, all over the place. I think every single one of you works with a Larissa, or you have a Larissa in your neighborhood. Someone who is wandering, someone who's a little bit lost, someone who needs something. And you have an opportunity. And guys, whose story will we be standing up here telling a year from now? that you work with, that you go to, carpool with, that's on your parent of a kid on one of your kids' teams, or a neighbor. I mean, picture that person in your mind right now that could be standing here a year from now, telling their story about how that invitation changed their life, about how that just suggestion, hey, why don't you come with me, took someone from a wandering reality to a straight path to going, I now have purpose. I mean, for Larissa to say that was night and this is day. And I can just tell you firsthand, I am the worst inviter in the world. Like, I started this church and I still don't know how anyone ever came because I am a miserable inviter. Some of you make this, it is so easy for you. There are people in our church who have had, the most random people that they have talked to that show up at our church, and they're just natural with that. I'm not, but I'm growing in that and I'm working toward that because, guys, the Larissas of the world, it matters. We need their stories. We need to be able to say, you're wandering, let me help you figure it out. Sometimes all a wanderer needs is someone to point them in the right direction. That's where we come into play. If you're wandering in this room today, I am thrilled that you're here. I hope you're encouraged by hearing a story like Larissa's. I hope that you know that you too can go from night to day. I hope that you understand that God is a rescuer and a redeemer, and that he wants to reach into your life wherever you're at in this moment, and he wants to guide you forward if you will just follow him. And the rest of you who maybe you know a wanderer, maybe that's not you in this moment, but I just got to tell you, there is someone in your life, I believe, that is wandering around and that you have an opportunity today and in the weeks coming up. Easter's coming. What an opportunity we have in front of us to go and to ask that person to say, hey, would you join me? Would you come? I think it's significant that Jesus describes himself in sort of a directional way. In John 14:6, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus says, you're lost, you're wandering, you're confused, you're searching, you're not sure how to get where you want to go. Jesus says, I'm the way. I'm the way. And if what you want, the life that you want, the joy that you want, the grace that you want, the forgiveness that you want, it's through me. Jesus says, I'm the way. And so often I've heard that verse and I've heard people use it as sort of like I picture more Jesus like a bouncer, right? And he's sort of at the door going, no one gets through except for me, and he's flexing, right? And it's sort of like a lot of times we use that verse to kind of show like Jesus, it's almost like, wait, is he trying to keep people out? I'm confused. What's going on here? And a lot of places or a lot of, Christians, unfortunately, sort of use Jesus in that way, like, nope, you got to get through him first, right? Like American Gladiator style or something. And it's like, no, the way I picture it, the way I see it, is this sort of like, it's like a fortress and everyone's trying to climb walls and figure out ways in. And I picture Jesus standing at the gate, at the door, yelling to everyone at the top of his lungs, guys, it's over here. I'm the way. Like, come this way. Like, you won't have to fall off of that building. You don't have to get maimed trying to get in. Guys, I'm the way. And it's like he's inviting people and welcoming people to say, come through me. I want to help you get in. I want to help point the way for you. Jesus is the way. And for you and I who are wandering in this room today, I just want to encourage you, reach out to him. Call on him. Cry out to him in the same way, so that your story becomes a greatest hit too. That you can look back at your life and go, that moment when I cried out to God, that's when everything changed. And that becomes the backbeat of your life. It becomes the song that you turn up to 11. It's the one that you yell out to people everywhere you can because you want them to know what's going on. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Let those of us who have gone through these things, who have experienced these moments, let's share them. Let's tell the stories. So here's what we're challenging you to do throughout the series, okay? We want to help you develop your own greatest hits, your own sort of mixtape, so to speak, right? Mixtape, anyone know that, what I'm talking about? So back in the day, again, back to cassettes, you would put all your favorite songs on this tape, and it was usually like because you had recorded it on the radio and you missed the first 7 seconds, but you got it, right? Or there's a DJ talking over the top of the first part, but you have this and you sort of had that tape always ready, waiting for your favorite songs, and you hit record, and eventually you had this tape of all your favorites, right? And they're all on there. And what I hope for you is that as you look back throughout your life, even now and the things you're going through now, that someday those will be your greatest hits. And you'll have this collection of stories that you can go back to and go, oh, remember that time in high school? Remember that time I just thought everything was gonna fall apart? And then this amazing thing happened, and God, he just did this incredible thing. Or there was that time, remember our sophomore year of college and that happened. Or remember the second year of our marriage. Like we just thought it was toast. And then that thing happened and everything changed. Or remember that financial situation we were in, and then like that money came out of nowhere. And you're sort of like compiling these songs, and you're compiling these stories, and you're developing your own sort of greatest hits album. And you're able to play that for people and go, hey, have you heard this? Have you heard track 3? Because I got to tell you about this one. This one is incredible. And you just start telling those stories like crazy. And so here's what we want you to do. We want you to share your stories. And we have created on our website a page for you, okay? It's storychurch.org/mystory. And here's what we're asking you to do. All throughout the series is to go to that page, and there's a guide on there for the easiest way to share your story. There is a video that's the top 10 sort of like single, like easy tips for recording a video. It's actually quite hilarious because it's Alistair and Liz. And so those of you who know them, it will be your favorite. You will go to this page every day for the rest of your life because it is hilarious. And so, but go there, watch the tips. Then there's a script generator, which is awesome. So you can pick like, hey, I was lost, confused, rebellious, whatever, annoyed. You can fill in the blanks, and it just kind of has these things. Now you don't have to follow that, but if you have no idea how to share your story, it's a great guide for you. And it will email you your script when you're done. And you can read that script as you record. Almost all of you have one of these somewhere, or a computer that has a camera on it. Record your story for us, and then we're asking you to post it to our Facebook wall, okay? And we're gonna begin compiling these and sharing them and going crazy because we want to go together and what this passage is saying, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. And over for the next several weeks, we just want to capture and tell stories. Does that make sense? So we want you to go there, storychurch.org/mystory, and begin the process of sharing yours. Get someone to help you, whatever you need. We'll help you if you need it, but find a way to get it up there and keep it short, keep it a minute, 2 minutes, but find a way to do that because, guys, we all have these greatest hits. And what will be awesome is at the end, we will have a Story Church mixtape of the greatest hits of what God has done in our lives collectively. And I cannot wait to see that, cannot wait to see all those things come through. So get on that. We are excited about that. But let me do this. Let me just pray for you guys as the band comes, and we're going to sing a couple more songs this morning. But here's what I'm going to ask of you this morning. As you pray with me, there are some of you in this room, you know a wanderer. And as we talk today, that person, they came to your mind. Maybe it's a family member or it's a coworker or a friend. They came to your mind this morning. So I'm going to ask that you will begin praying for that person on a daily basis from now till Easter. And that you will, some point in the next several weeks, that you'll invite them to join us. You'll invite them to come. Because I want their story to be told up here next year. I want to see them being baptized right here because I want to see what God does in these people's lives. I'm going to ask you to just focus on them for a minute and to pray for that person. Let's just do that together. And then there are some of you in this room that this is you today. As you heard this story, maybe you heard Larissa's story, you've heard these descriptions of wandering, and you're looking in a mirror going, man, that is me today. I want to invite you to cry out to God today. In this moment, that you would call out to him to be your rescue, to be your redeemer, to lead you, and to commit to follow him. And I believe that if you will cry out to him, that he will lead you. He will come into your life and he will change you. And you can go from a wanderer to a follower this morning. So I'm just going to lead you in a prayer. I'm going to ask you to just pray this in your heart today. Dear Jesus, I'm a wanderer today. I'm lost. I'm confused. I'm not sure which way to go. I've been looking for something to satisfy. I'm coming up empty. So Jesus, come into my life, change me, forgive me for all the things that I've done, and lead me out of this desert. I will follow you, and I will stay close to you. Change me and use me for whatever you want to do in me and through me. If you prayed that prayer today, I'm going to invite you to, before you leave today, to take that card, to write on that card, to let us know what you have done today, what God has done in your life. And my prayer for you is that we would be able to begin to walk with you. Some of us have been through the desert and we know the way. And so I'm just going to ask you to let us know so that we can guide you in these next few steps. And on that card, there's a clear way for you to be able to tell us that you made a commitment today to follow Jesus for the first time. And we want to celebrate with you. We want to be encouraged by that. We want to encourage you. But I'm going to ask you to take that bold step and to let us know that today. You can do that on that card. You can drop it in the box, or you can hand it to somebody on your way out today. But God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for leading us out of the desert. Thank you for leading us out of the wasteland and out of places of dryness and hunger, God, and for satisfying the deepest longings of our heart. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.